Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wealth Expedition. What is going on with national debt in the US? I mean, we have talk of a potential government shutdown again next week. I don't know if it'll happen. They usually push these things to the last minute and then finally come to a conclusion in the last day or two. We'll see. But whenever this topic comes up, a lot of times the US national debt itself comes right back into the spotlight. We're at about $37.5 trillion in US national debt right now. And you know how fast that's growing. It's $2 trillion per year currently. $2 trillion that we're going to be adding to that 37.5 trillion. So we're going to be hitting 40 trillion pretty soon if things don't change. So the question obviously is, could the US default? Maybe not this year. Could it default in the next few years? Is default even on the list of possibilities right now? Could the economy collapse? These are the questions I want to answer to you today because this is a big, big topic. It's hard to wrap our minds around $37.5 trillion and what that means in terms of tax revenue and everything else that's going on with the US government and how they can afford that. Let me use an analogy for you, and this is not a perfect crossover analogy, but it will give you an idea of how the US government is floating this right now. So imagine that someone makes $100,000 per year. Okay, 100,000. But their debt level is $800,000. Okay, that is approximately like what the US government is experiencing right now. If they were an individual on our level, on our terms, on our monetary normalcy, $100,000 in income, $800,000 in debt. But of that $100,000 in income, I'm paying out about $33,000 in just interest alone. That's not even including principal. That's just paying the interest so that I don't have to pay interest on interest. All right. Well, the problem is I'm not just spending what I'm making, I'm actually spending more than I'm making. So whatever I have additional to that 100,000, and this is $100,000, we're not factoring in taxes right now because obviously the government doesn't pay taxes on the taxes it receives, so we're not factoring in taxes here. So of the $100,000, I'm paying 33,000 out. That's 67,000 that I have left to spend. But I'm not spending just 67,000. I'm spending way more than that. In fact, I'm going $40,000 more into debt over the next year. And that adds more interest payments to what I'm already paying. So maybe I'm now paying 2,000 more out in interest. Well, I hope my income grew as well. Yeah, and it does. The government income grows because economies grow, GDP increases. And so it would be, in this case, something like if I was making 100,000 and I got a 6% raise. Now I'm making 106,000, but now I'm also paying 2,000 more in interest. So what's the difference here? Okay, I'm making 6,000 more. I'm paying 2,000 more out in interest. Yeah, I also have to cover the principal as well. So it's not just 4,000 net cash flow, but it works. It's sustainable. Technically, I could float it. Yeah, so think about it this way. Yeah, their income is growing. Their interest payments are increasing, but for covering principal, when the principal comes due and they have to pay back their bonds, what do? They take out new bonds to pay off the old bonds, and the cycle continues. It's kind of like if I were to have a credit card that had unlimited capacity and no late fees. That's kind of how it would be. So, yeah, that's how they float it. They technically can continue it for a while yet. I don't know if it's continuable for 50 years. Maybe they can stretch it for 100 years. Maybe they can stretch it indefinitely. But the problem is that the US government has been spending a lot since COVID. And they were already spending a lot before COVID, but their increase in spending, what's called fiscal spending, has not declined much. I mean, there was a spike in 2020, 2021, but it never went back to levels that it should have. Normally, under Keynesian economic theory, you have these bursts of fiscal spending to help prop up the economy and get it back, get the momentum back. And then you decrease the fiscal spending and you pay back what you borrowed. But that doesn't happen, of course. That doesn't happen in real life. So what's happening now is that we're just spending our way through this economic growth and it's propping things up. And the stock market is actually very high compared to what the expected earnings are over the next 12 months. And so any little change in economic outlook can have a dramatic effect on stock prices. So right now, we're not in a great position for the markets to have a really great year next year. In fact, we're probably in a position where markets could be very volatile. We could easily see a correction of down 10 to 20% within the next 12 months. While a bear market is not usually a probability in any given year, it generally comes around once every 4 to 5 years on average, and that can be a big range from, 2, 3 years to 10 or more years. But given where we are right now and the way that this economy has been continually growing with a large attribution of that growth to government spending, I think we're kind of in a little bit of a precarious situation right now where if it were me, I would be wanting to take another look at my financial profile, take another look at my asset allocation, and make sure that given the way that I'm allocated between stocks and bonds, stocks are more risky in the short term, bonds are less risky in the short term. Am I in a position that's going to be able to weather the kinds of storms that this next 12 to 18 months could bring, given where we are as an economy? And it's supposed to still grow. The economy is likely to still grow. But the problem is that the stock market already expects that and expects a lot out of the markets and out of the economy over the next 12 months. And given where we are with the fiscal spending and the government debt, which will have to be paid for, if not in taxes, which it probably won't be paid much in taxes, it's going to have to come through inflation. And inflation is something that the Federal Reserve has been trying to keep down while also keeping unemployment down. And that's a delicate balance, because if inflation picks back up, they're going to have to choose, do we fight inflation or do we fight unemployment? And that could create a problem. So all that to say, this next 12 months is going to probably come with some elevated volatility, and the Wealth Expedition membership, which is opening in just a few weeks, is going to offer strategies, tools, insights, a watch list of different funds, and it's going to have a lot of practical application in it for how we can navigate markets in today's environment, as well as focus on budgeting, debt elimination, income growth, and entrepreneurship. So it really takes you on this journey, and it looks at current events and helps guide through difficult challenges that may come. So I encourage you to subscribe. If you're not already subscribed, follow along, and I hope to see you in the upcoming membership. Until next week, this is Daniel Lancaster signing off. Take care.